Welcome to the Land of Light and the Explorers Club. This is the first of the series where we're also going to interview some explorers to see all of the cool things that they're up to, especially here in Portugal. Today we're joined by Raquel Clemente Martins, who's a filmmaker, and we share a similar passion about the Azores and the ocean. She's now doing a film project that's called Women from the Sea, where she interviewed thousands of women about their connection to the ocean. Now, of course, having this be the setup, what's your connection to the ocean?
Hi, this is a great opportunity to talk about something I love, which is the Explorers Club and the ocean and making films. So, my connection to the ocean is part of me. The ocean is part of me. I'm part of the ocean. It has always been there. It's where I come from. It's where I feel connected to myself, to the universe, to nature.
Okay, so this is also a spiritual quest for you, like this
hmm
ocean. How would you define that connection to the ocean? I mean, obviously, Portuguese, there's some connection, but personally.
Personally, it's really where I feel at ease, even even when the ocean is rough, when the sea is not welcoming me in, just observing and listening to it makes me relax. But if I have a chance to go into the water and the water is not cold, I don't like cold water. But if the water is good, a little bit of waves or just calm sea, it's like going back to my mom's womb. It's like being back where I'm from. So it's a very emotional connection. I love buoyancy. I love being submersed underwater. It's like flying. It's an amazing experience. I really like it. So every time I can, it's where I go.
Okay, sweet. And so was that also the origin point for creating this film to explore this connection of you personally as well as other women to and from the sea?
Well, I think the idea was more active or more, the purpose was more to bring awareness. So it was not just a spiritual kind of quest. It was how can I and two other friends from the film industry do our part in an active way to talk about sustainability in the ocean, to protect the ocean, to protect marine biodiversity, to talk about climate change, and do what we know how to do. So we thought if we were able to collect the voices of women that have an emotional connection with the ocean, their voices would be very inspiring to people that might be disconnected from nature, disconnected from the ocean, and they just need to listen to someone that is passionate about it. And maybe they will also want to protect it because we protect what we care for, we
Yeah,
protect what we love.
that's very true. And I also saw that you do this on a bigger scale with something called help images work,
hmm
right? Which is, could you speak more on that? Because I find it a very fascinating project. I've only dove into the superficial of it, but what's the backstory behind it and the goal?
Well, in 2008, I was coming back from London and I wanted to do a shift in my life. And the idea was to keep on doing films, which is something I hope I never stop doing, but not in a commercial way. So with two other friends and very dear friends, we started Help Images, which is an NGO. It's a registered charity in Portugal. And what we do is we create communication products for nonprofits. So we do not search for, or in the beginning, we were not searching for our own projects. We're actually doing someone, we were enhancing and we were promoting someone else's projects.
Okay, so other NGOs and projects that help other people or other
Yes.
projects. Super sweet, because I think ultimately this is the power of film and storytelling is to help and inspire, right? So how did you start that journey? How did you get into filmmaking in the first place?
Oh, I got into filmmaking because I knew computer art back in 1988. And there weren't many people that could actually do computer art back in the late 80s. So I got hired to do special effects at the first post-production company in Portugal. And that's how I got into filmmaking, because I thought I was going to work in an advertising company and be a creative at an agency. And all of a sudden, I'm actually making films. I never thought I would do that, but it started like that, by chance, by opportunity. Um, it's actually like that always, isn't it? It's if you are at the right place and you have the right skills and things happen to you and you take the challenge. I had no idea. I didn't do film school. I did commercial arts at university, and I had photography, and that was it. I had no background on filmmaking.
Okay.
But one of the things that was very important for us when we started Alp Images was that for many years I had, as a volunteer, I realized that a lot of times NGOs get production companies to do films for them. But usually it's the pro bono, it's not the main crew, it's someone else's agenda, not the agenda of the NGO. And our purpose was, we're going to make the films, the communication products the NGOs really need and want to promote their work, not someone else's agenda.
Okay, amazing. I mean, that alone I think is so valuable because it is that which also Lusitania Network, the idea is to just help people tell their story, but honestly, because I think so many people have beautiful stories to share, and just to dive deep is such an inspiration, which I'm also so grateful for to sit here with you and also other explorers potentially. And so, in that context, maybe also a question in that direction: what brings you then to the Explorers Club, or how did that connection form?
Well, that connection came through a friend of a friend told me about the Explorers Club, and when I met Paul Neal, our president of the Portuguese chapter, we really got along great, and we started thinking about projects, and he explained better what was the Explorers Club, and he invited me, and I was quite surprised that I could be eligible. And so I said, okay, I'll try my best. And yeah, I got accepted. And I think, if I think back, all my life I've been very curious. I'm not the wild adventurer, but I'm very curious. And explorers are also story carriers. So I travel the world, collect stories, and I love telling stories. So I think that's how I connect to the Explorers Club.
Definitely. I think it's such a beautiful organization. And so, I guess when we talk about this telling stories, do you have any special story to share, especially from Women from the Sea? Anything that's like really inspiring just from some of the women that you've interviewed? And I'm sure there's so many stories.
There are really, really a lot of stories, and it's very difficult to pick one because what is more important is that they talk from their heart, regardless of what they do, um, regardless of how their emotional connection with the ocean reveals itself. It's all about caring for something that is very important in your life. It's the pillar of your life, and when you talk about that, then you talk with a sparkle in your eye. But I just came to my mind someone I interviewed in Ireland, and she told me that when she was 6 years old, she knew already all the names in Latin and common names, all the flora and fauna in her coastal line in Ireland, near her home. And she came up to her parents and said, I will study marine biologist. I am going to be a marine biologist. And she followed her dream even today. And today she is head of a very important position in EU regarding marine protection and marine safeguards. The fun thing is that she was telling me, we just came into shore, and and I've been away for 3 months, and when when I was about to come to the pier, I called my husband and asked him if he was ready, yeah, if our boat was ready, because I was just going to change and I would be sailing this afternoon again. So this is having a life at sea. This is really a very strong connection. This woman cannot stay very long in land.
It's so inspiring also to hear that she's then reached a high position, because ultimately, I believe it would be so beautiful if just passion is the true driver behind what people spend their times with, you know? So it's amazing also to see that come together, you from a filmmaking perspective, and then also she from a marine conservation perspective. So would you say, going a bit deeper into these stories, what would be your main conclusion from having interviewed all these women? What is is there a common thread that is the connecting piece, or is it different for every woman?
There is a very strong emotional connection thread. And it's where they get their strength from. That's the place where they get healed, where they feel grounded. And regardless of what is their profession, their age, or their culture, their way of being alive, it's always connected to the ocean. It's always the very strong connection with the ocean. So it's all about following your passion. It is. Sometimes you can't. One woman also once told me, right in the beginning of the project in 2021, when there were less than 20 women in the project, now it's over 1,000. She told me, pay attention, Raquel, because when you board a ship with women and men sailors, look at them and you will find the women from the sea. Not all of them are women from the sea under your definition of having an emotional connection, because some women board the ship because it's their job, it's not their passion. So it's the same thing with living in an island. Just because you live in an island doesn't mean you have an emotional connection with the sea. You have a connection with the sea because you live in an island, but might not be emotional. So I'm actually very interested how emotion really drives our lives, our goals, what we achieve, what we don't achieve, our purpose. I really think that's important. And listening to these women, I would say 98% of them really followed their dream and their passion. And others found their dream and their passion in the sea. They didn't know about it, but once they were there, they felt, I've come home.
Wow. That's so special. And it's, I think, really this beauty of having found something you're really passionate about, that meaning that something like that can inspire in our lives. And it's a very interesting hypothesis as well to also dive deeper. I mean, figuratively, literally, perhaps. It's this emotional connection to the sea. Would you say, could you describe it? Could you say when it really starts, or what the common thread is with that feeling to the ocean? What makes someone feel the ocean?
Okay, going back to that woman in Ireland, she also told me something that I think a lot of the women that I have interviewed connect with. She says, okay, we all know from science we come from the ocean, life on our planet. And some of us have already moved from ocean inland, and we feel grounded inland. And she was talking in the first person. She was saying, and I believe her, and I think I am like that too. I feel I'm still in the ocean. I still have not made the determined, the definite jump into land. I still have one foot on both worlds, and I definitely connect more with this, with the sea, with the world. But for me, I'm not. There are women. There are a lot more emotion about it, or they go into they swim every day, rain or shine, winter or summer. I'm not like that. I need to see water near me. Maybe it's not the ocean, but it's a river that runs to the ocean or a body of water. I need to have that. And I first realized this was important for me when I lived in Dayton, Ohio, which was inland in the big North American continent. And I was 16. And when I learned how to drive, I would love to get into the car and drive towards the fog. Because here in Lisbon, where I had grown up, where's the fog, it's where the river is. So I was longing for water. I was longing for the river. And I would get into the car and drive all the way through the fog. So I had that mist feeling that I really like when you combine water with air, and then if you have the smell of the sea, even better. That was not the case there. But so the connection was always there.
And I think it is for most of us, right? I think there is something so just simple at looking at waves crash into the shore. When I was working on the Romairos project, which is this cultural pilgrimage on the Azores as well, there's a certain time where I wrote a poem because there was this big catastrophe that sparked the tradition to start, like a landslide that buried Villafranca do Campo just completely beneath the earth, and a lot of people died. And I had a poem written where it was also saying like, okay, this happened, and the waves continue to crash against the beach. Like it's like such a bigger thing than anything we can imagine. There's always going to be waves crashing onto the shore, and it's like there's a calming thing about that, in my opinion, where it's this idea of something bigger than us that will be here when we're gone and is long here since we arrived or before we arrived. And I think it's such a profound thing if we just even feel it, but just hesitate to think on that for a moment. I think is very inspiring.
It is very inspiring. It is a sense of connection with your inner values. I think I usually ask the women what values do they share with the ocean, and respect, of course, it's very important. Um, Immense, vast horizon, which brings us to our dimension. And at the same time, I like to think that, like, all human beings count, all life elements on earth count, all animals, plants count. It's like all the drops in the ocean count, even though it takes more than half of our planet. All different drops of the ocean make the ocean. So we all count. We all have a role. We all have a say. And if we're missing, then it's one less. So I think that's the kind of movement, which is another value that I believe we take from the ocean, because it's always moving. So we should be always moving. And the other one that I like very much, which a lot of the women point out, is generosity. We think about the ocean and we think about generosity, but it was not always like this. Because a lot of the women I interviewed in the Azores, in Ireland, and more recently in Macau and Hong Kong, they talk about, in the old times, people being very much afraid of the ocean. They didn't know how to swim. They didn't understand the roaring of the waves. They didn't understand the monsoons. They didn't understand what was going on. So it was a scary moment. In the Azores, a lot of the churches and a lot of the houses, the old houses, faced their back to the ocean. People did not want to see the ocean. So and they would rather their their kids and their family members would work inland and adventure themselves into the sea.
Okay, how interesting. Also to see these, and would you say there are big regional differences in how that is viewed, or is it more coming to like, I guess, a cohesive answer nowadays? It's more similar.
I think it's very similar from what, of course, I'm just giving 3 examples, and there's many more, and maybe there are different, and of course there are different perspectives. But I see a lot of commonality of how the ocean was perceived in these different islands. The Azores, Ireland, and Hong Kong and Macau. There's a lot of similarities. In the old times, how it was perceived as a scary thing, something you would not adventure yourself. Only the brave, only the men would do something like that, which is not true, because we find out that some women also did it, and they had an important role, not just as a lady I interviewed from Norway. She said she comes from a very long heritage of sailors in the north of Norway, and she also felt this connection, and she said, I had to decide if I wanted to be a waiting lady or an active lady towards the sea. And this is something that I also felt a lot in the Azores. Some of the women were waiting women, and they're very important. I'm not being disrespectful or neglecting what was their role, but we need to decide. And I think somehow my friend that started Women from the Sea with me, we decided we did not want to be waiting. We wanted to have an active role in preserving the ocean.
Amazing and really inspiring, because it makes so much sense, and it's so interesting to hear such a deep dive into your work and interviewing all these women. And so, how would you say, even for other women to come forth, how could people support this project of Women from the Sea, or join into the movement, or help find their connection to the ocean?
They can find us at our website, helpimages.org. And you either want to learn more about the project and you just send us an email, there's a direct link, or you can start right there if you identify yourself as a woman, to actually start by pressing, yes, I am a woman from the sea, and start answering a few questions, and then we contact them. It's a long process. It's done by volunteers, and we interview all the women. So it takes a while, but it's so inspiring. It's incredible. Every time we interview, I interviewed someone yesterday from Beja, which is really in the border of Portugal and Spain, Alentejo, deep inland. And she was telling me that as a child, even though she was born in Beja, all her childhood and teen years she spent in Beja, she was always, always longing for the time she would go to Espinho, to the coast, to be in the water. And of course, she ended up being an environmental activist and a woman from the sea. So it doesn't matter where you're born, doesn't matter, because you feel it. You feel this drive. And I think that some of my friends say, oh, all of a sudden you're doing this project. Why are you doing this? Because maybe they don't look at me and see, oh, I'm not one of those crazy nuts about being in the water. But that's because it was always my privacy, my private moments where I recharge. It's with water. Sometimes it's just a quick shower, and I feel like I've just been reborn. So all of us have different connections, but the water is, our body is made of water. So, it's just I feel that a lot of people just disconnected from nature. That's why they are not finding this emotional connection. They may just find the leisure connection or they find the business connection, but there is an emotional one.
Definitely. I think once we start to view everything as a holistic piece and see nature as part of us and just be, for me, the ocean is a big one, also forests, to just be immersed in the forest with all the birds and all the smells and the sounds. It's like, wow. And just there's such a profoundness in these moments, I feel, and the ocean especially. And I think that it's about this project specifically, it's about women, is also beautiful because I think often as this, let's say it even as a, from my own view, is like more in the waiting position in society. It's very good to hear so many women come forward and actually share and inspire each other, because I think that's just comes from a deeper level, if that makes sense.
It comes. It's very. There's another story about this fisherwoman in Pico. I came to visit her. Someone had mentioned that she was very inspiring, and I came to visit her, and she was incredibly shy. She immediately said, "Forget it, Raquel. I'm not going to be interviewed. I'm not going to." Okay, I say, okay, but can I learn more about you? Can we talk? And then we started talking. I met her family, and then I asked her husband, "Do you think she's just shy, but she wants to do it, or she really doesn't want to do it?" And he said, "I think she wants to do it. Let me talk to her." So I left. A few months later, I contacted them again and said, I'm actually, we found some funding. There is some funding from the government of the Azores. We are going to be filming. Will you come forward?" And she said, "Yes, I will." And she is someone that was brought up with her back, with her heels to the ocean. That's how they say. We turn our heels to the ocean. And because her family were farmers. And then she married this fisherman. And he is a really special man. And he was able to help her get the strength to come forward and talk about her experience. And the day she came, she was shaking all over, but she came with her husband, with one of her daughters. We filmed her. It was an amazing experience. She was pampered by the whole team. She went into the makeup room. It was like a very special day. Just that moment gave her such empowerment. And then when she talked very naturally. She says, I asked, "What do you like the most about the sea?" And she said, "The sea is beautiful from land, but the sea is also beautiful from my boat." And it was all the natural way she was talking, but she was actually on camera. And she couldn't believe she was doing it. But 1 year later, I called her and said, "We're coming back and we're showing the film in this theater in Fayal." And she said, "Really? I'm going to be there on a big screen?" I said, "Yes." "Can I bring my family?" I said, "You can bring anyone. Bring all your family and friends." And it was amazing. The power it gave to her whole family, how inspiring it was seeing her in the big screen. So I think the project is also about these unsung heroes, these women's voices, and letting everyone know they have something to say, and especially letting all the other women that have not yet come forward, that we're waiting for them. They can come whenever they want.
Amazing. Yeah, I mean, it sounds emotional already. Like just from you sharing that story, I think there's something so beautiful in making someone feel heard and seen. And I think to have a platform like the ocean is something that a lot of people can already relate to in such one way or another. So it's really fabulous to see this also come to life with the empowerment of people that can take from it. And I think that's also life, the give and take, like you give your voice, but also you take this energy from actually being on the big screen and
Hmm.
being able to inspire others with your story.
And especially to bring awareness to things that are important to you. For this woman, it was very important that the fish she was usually being able to catch was no longer there, you know? So we're not listening to scientific reports. We're actually listening to people that go off to sea every day. They know what's happening. They know new species are coming into their seas and others are disappearing. So it's memory, it's knowledge, it's information coming first person, and a lot of experience that should not be lost. So I think this project is also connecting these voices, connecting this information. And I hope I will be able to do that more next year about interviewing women and working with coastal communities to really bring awareness and bring voice um, to what it's their concern and what they want to really bring awareness to and attention to.
Okay, amazing. And so you also do this as a way to use their knowledge in order to better preserve the
Of
marine
course,
life?
of course, of course. And that's why I think it's important that we do different communication tools. Doing a documentary, a feature documentary is good, but it doesn't work for all our targets. And we have many different targets. So we need to be able to accommodate the material we have into being good communication tools that are available in different platforms for different targets, for different purposes. The women in my last film, which is it's women in the blue economy, they talk very different. Their concerns are very different from the ones, and the way they express themselves are very different from the women in the Azores. So they can touch different communities, they can touch different targets. So we need to be clever and not just listen, use the material and act, do something with it. So I don't believe just in listening and recording. We need to transform it into tools to actually bring awareness to what is most dear to us, which is preserving our oceans.
Yeah. And how is that process unfolding? The latest interview we did was with Humberto Rosa, who used to be the director of the European Commission in Biodiversity. And he was also sharing some things on restoration of nature and how actually he talked about fishing zones, and it really stuck
Mm-hmm.
with me. They started to create these protected marine zones, but actually by creating these marine zones, people were able to fish more fish than before because the fish had a recovery area where they could actually get more eggs out there
Mm-hmm.
and populate quicker. And that was really inspiring to me to also see that even from an economic perspective,
Mm-hmm.
talk about the different angles, it actually makes a lot of sense to preserve nature because it's better for us, even economically. And I think to get that more out there is so important too, because we are in a money driven world. And so to get that perspective, like, hey, saving the earth is actually not just saving us, but it can even be beneficial towards what we're trying to accomplish. So I'd be wondering if you have any stories when it comes to marine protection, the first thing that comes to mind, any statistic that was really inspiring to you on how marine preservation already functions and works.
Well, I have a few stories. There is an important story in Mexico. I'm not going to talk about that because I don't have enough information for it, but I welcome everyone to research because it's a marine reserve area that improved 400% in less than 10 years. So it's worth looking into it. It's an amazing case study. What I want to talk, and I think it's very important, being for deep sea mining, being for preserving species, being for climate change, whatever, is that we need to start taking significant steps, significant gestures. We don't need to live on a world that is driven by capitalism. We don't need to live on a world that is driven by money. So let's start thinking about things in a different way. Let's do some significant gestures and change the way we think and stop looking at our resources, at nature, as economic resources. They are living resources. The whales are very important in the food chain of our oceans, in our own food chain. So they are very important. Even though they don't have a dollar sign up to it, they're very important. So let's not think about it that way. It will take time, but we can do it. We did it towards, like in the old times. One of the women that I interviewed in Ireland was talking about in the old times, parents and teachers used to hit children to tell them off. Nowadays, it's not allowed. You might do it once in a while because you lose your mind, but it's not common sense anymore. So let's stop being aggressive towards the ocean, towards nature, towards ourselves, because we put a dollar sign up in everything. You're not worth something if you don't have a dollar sign to your commodity, to what you... But you are so much more than that. You are like the whale. You're part of the ecosystem. We need you, regardless.
It's a really, really inspiring. And I completely agree. Just it's so interesting to look at that, because often when we really put it into perspective about ourselves, our own value, or everything like that, it's like the other day there was someone who came to me, Vincent, also shout out in that regard. But he came up to me and he was like, okay, so I give you 5 million and you cut your arm off. Would you do it? No? Okay, you're a millionaire. Like I also changing that mindset of like, what are you worth? Because if it comes down to it, you yourself are worth more than any dollar sign amount that there could be. And the same thing with nature overall. There cannot be this numerical value towards what it actually is, because it sustains us. It is us also. So it's really, really inspiring what you say.
Think about the whale. Every time you forget about that, the relevance of the whales in our ocean. Of course, the marine biologists and the conservationists, they know their value and they protect it. I'm not saying they are not protecting it. They are protecting it. It's just not something you hunt for money anymore, because no one uses whale oil.
Okay.
So let's bear that friendly animal that shares this planet with us in mind, and think that it's not because there isn't a dollar sign to someone that that person is not worth the world.
Okay. Well, then I think we're almost getting close to the end here. Is there any specific last thing you'd like to add? Anything you'd like people to know about you, or any just message for the people listening?
Well, there is another project that I'm very involved with, which is to identify and to create communities where everyone belongs. So I believe that it's also part of this movement of Women from the Sea, and connecting everyone towards a space, creating a space in our planet, in our community, in our city, in our family, a place where everyone belongs, a place where you don't need to change the way you are to be part of this community. So that is something I'm also working and studying, and hopefully helping create. And I'm connecting another love of my life, which is art, artistic forms, fine arts, and connecting art with belonging. I'm hoping to promote my project. It's called Art for Humanity, New Narratives of Love, Hope, and Belonging. So that's also in our website, and it's all these projects connect to each other.
Wonderful. And I think all that you shared is so important. And I find that amazing also that we get a chance to sit down and have an interview or speak, have a conversation rather. Um, and it's really inspiring to sit here and to listen to your stories. And I'm very excited to see what the future holds for all of those projects. And it will be in the link below if you want to see the work that Raquel Clements Martins is doing. And so, yeah, this was Lusitania Explorers Club. Thank you for watching. Thank you for joining.
Thank you so much for this lovely afternoon together talking.
Exactly. At Altis Belem.
At
Also
Altis Belem.
deserves to be mentioned here.
Yes,
Altis
Altis
Belem.
Belem welcomed us.
So yeah, thank you so much.
Thank
And
you.
we'll catch you in the next one.